In the frozen silence, the smallest life faces the greatest challenge. Among siblings, strength decides who feeds and who fades. Each fragile breath is a fight against the unforgiving cold. Above them, the Arctic unleashes a storm that buries the unprepared. Only her warmth stands between life and the endless cold. In this silent shelter, even nourishment becomes a desperate contest. Its strength fades, measured only by the rhythm of a fragile heartbeat. The Arctic night lingers, testing the limits of even the smallest survivor. As the darkness loosens its grip, survival demands more than endurance. A faint glow returns, and with it, the fragile promise of another day. Soon, they must leave the safety of snow and face the Arctic beyond. The barrier of snow gives way, revealing a world far more unforgiving. Beyond the den lies a world of light and relentless cold. For the smallest, even standing becomes a test of survival. In the Arctic, falling behind can mean never catching up. Instinct drives her forward, but something pulls her back. In a world ruled by survival, even instinct bends to protect the fragile. Step by step, survival becomes a shared journey across the frozen expanse. Here, there is no shelter, only distance, cold, and the will to endure. Every step forward demands strength, the smallest one can barely afford. Exhaustion sets in, where even the will to move begins to fade. For some, the Arctic allows no second chances. But instinct does not always abandon the weakest. Sometimes, survival begins with a single push and the will to respond. From the edge of collapse, it finds the strength to stand once more. Beneath the frozen surface, life waits, hidden and silent. In the Arctic, patience can mean the difference between hunger and survival. But for the smallest, stillness is harder than movement. In a moment lost, the Arctic offers no forgiveness. With no reward, the cost of failure is felt immediately. Without food, even movement becomes a draining burden. There comes a point when even survival must pause. In the Arctic, distance can quickly become a final separation. To survive, she must move on, but leaving one behind carries its own cost. In the harshest places on Earth, survival is a choice made again and again. Against the storm, she returns to what may yet be lost. At the edge of survival, she finds what remains. Against all odds, life still flickers within. In the coldest place on Earth, warmth becomes the only refuge. With warmth returned and strength begins slowly to follow. Even at its weakest, life finds a way to rise again. Together they move again, at each step a quiet act of survival. There is no rest here, only the need to keep moving forward. Their path is fragile, written briefly upon a shifting world of ice. Here, the journey has no end, but only distance, cold, and the will to go on. With each step, the smallest begins to reclaim its strength. Ahead, a fragile light emerges, hinting at a world beyond survival. What once faltered, Axe now finds a rhythm strong enough to continue. In the harshest wilderness, survival is carried not alone, but together. Beyond survival lies distance and the promise of what comes next. For now, the storm has passed, but the Arctic never truly relents. No longer falling behind, the smallest now walks with quiet determination. In this endless world, survival is never certain, only earned. Beyond this moment, the journey continues into a world without end. For now, there is rest and a quiet pause in a world that rarely offers one. Rest is brief, for survival demands. They move once more. With each step, the Arctic stretches on, vast, silent, and unyielding. Once the weakest, it now steps forward with quiet strength. In the quiet vastness, survival becomes a story written in every step. For now, it survives, and but the Arctic journey is only just beginning. Under the endless light, survival continues without pause. Across an endless horizon, their story continues step by step. In the endless Arctic, and even the smallest life becomes part of something far greater. Too small for the Arctic, yet strong enough to endure. The Arctic does not remember, it only endures. In this frozen world, survival leaves no trace behind. Some stories are never seen and only lived. The Arctic remains indifferent, vast, and eternal.